We'll begin in just a minute. We'll have 6 hour work here. Any of you want to sit? Okay, lights, camera, action. I'd like to welcome you all today. Thank you for being here. Just to point out, our wonderful meeting planning staff over here took the thoughtful care to put tissues around various places should you need them. At the end of many rows are a box of tissues. So look around. If you need them, holler to your colleagues, they'll be available. Today we're here to celebrate the life of our dear friend and our colleague and Candy's husband, Dr. Dionisio Herrera. Dio was a man of a big mind and a big heart and a very genuine caring for others. I think all of you who knew him know that. I, for me, will carry with me forever really fond memories of Dio's big smile and warm embrace. I never once, ever encountered Dio when he didn't come up to me with that huge smile and give me a warm embrace. He was a very rare human being. His keen intellect led him to achieve the highest of academic degrees and gave him the vision to forge global partnerships that are serving to protect the health of all people around the world. This past October, we acknowledged that acknowledged his leadership by naming him as the first recipient of the Task Force Award for Consequential Compassion, which is up here. That award spoke perfectly to Dio's qualities that each of us seeks to emulate. I would like to read a brief poem before we get on with our ceremony. This is a poem titled "'Tis a Fearful Thing" by Yehuda Halevi. He was a Spanish Jewish physician, poet, and philosopher who lived in Spain around 1075. "'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched." We'd like to begin our program with a musical tribute by our own Adam Johnson, and he will be accompanied by Isaac De La Cruz on guitar. Gentlemen.
Afternoon, everyone. It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way to know you again. Oh, I tell you all you all the planes we flew, good things we've been through, that I'll be sitting here singing about you without another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but someone told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I've been through, you were standing there by my side, and now you know that we're for the last ride. A long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Why'd you have to leave so soon? Why'd you have to go? Why'd you have to leave me when I needed you the most? But I don't really know how to tell you without feeling much worse. I know you're in a better place, but it's always gonna hurt to carry on and give me all the strength I need to carry on. It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Thanks very much, Adam and Isaac. Thank you. We've organized today's program in a way to allow a few colleagues an opportunity to give their remembrances of Dio. I think everyone in this room could probably stand up and expound for hours on a man who had, as I said, an enormous heart and so much talent. We will start with remembrances from Dr. Carl Reddy, colleague from TEFINET and head of the steering board. Carl couldn't be here and therefore asked me to read his remarks. We are, I think, simulcasting this, is that right?
Yes.
I hope all the people across the world whom Dionisio knew, which are literally in the thousands. Dionisio was one of the most connected individuals I've ever known. Almost any corner of the world you go to, there are people that call Dionisio friend everywhere. And it's quite astonishing. I myself never know anybody quite like that. He's a special guy. So Carl sent the following. Dionisio was a man who lived well. He laughed often and loved much. He gained the respect of intelligent women and men and the love of children. He never lacked appreciation of the world's beauty or failed to express it. He followed his dreams and pursued excellence in all his tasks. He brought out the best in others and only gave the best of himself. I'm eternally thankful that the circles of our lives intersected. Carl also asks that I read the following verse by Bessie Anderson. Do not stand at my grave and weep, by Mary Elizabeth Fry. Do not stand at my grave and weep, I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow, I am the diamond glints of snow, I am the sun on unripened grain, I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am there. I did not die. Thank you, Carl. I hope you're listening. I know how much you loved Dionisio and what a dear friend he was. I next would like to ask Dr. Patrick O'Carroll, here from the task force.
Hey, everybody. So as Dave said, we're each kind of sharing a particular perspective we have in just a very few minutes, because we could go on and on forever. I'm going to share the perspective of what it was like to supervise Dionisio for a couple of years. And I can summarize this in 3 words, all of which begin with the letter P, like Patrick or Patricio. So the first one is patient. And it's not me being patient with Dio, it was Dio being patient with me. Because I had a lot to learn about TEPINET and about FETPs and about all the work that had gone on before I ever arrived. And now I was tasked with helping to oversee that program and helping Dio be even more effective than he'd been. So I was naturally asking a lot of questions, to almost each of which initially Dionisio's response was, well, it depends. And the first time I heard that, I thought, well, it probably depends. And then the second, the third, fourth, and fifth time, I started thinking, for God's sakes, can't you just give me a straight answer? I just need to know. I mean, how many FETPs are there? Well, it depends. Do you mean TEPINET FETPs or all FETPs? Do you mean new ones that aren't at the speed, or do you mean 2-year ones or 1-year ones? So through this process of educating me, I was struck with how incredibly patient he was. And over the time of being with him and seeing how he interacted with people who were very senior, people like Carl already, but also people who were brand new to this, who were thinking of applying to start at FETP. He was equally patient at every level. And his patience really struck me as something, as a supervisor, I could see it day in, day out with me, with his colleagues here, with his friends abroad. The second key word is persistent. And this is another thing that can drive you crazy when you're a supervisor, because he was very persistent in getting me to do whatever he wanted me to do. And very persistent in ignoring me when he knew I was asking him to do something that he really shouldn't be doing. He be both persistent and patient at the same time in that regard. But it's his persistence that led to one of the most phenomenal success stories in public health. And I'm not overstating that. You know, we have over 100 countries served by well-trained epidemiologists because of the leadership of Dionisio Herrera. It's that mission dedication, that persistence that he kept after and after it for 10 years, grew it from a small program to what is now one of the most globally consequential programs in global health. So persistence is clearly one of my key words. And the third, and I'll close on it, is perspicacious. And let me say, there's no reason why a memorial service can't be educational as well. I had to look this up too, because I had a vague idea what I thought I knew what it meant. It's sort of like perceptive, it's a little bit like shrewd, kind of like clever. But the special thing about perspicacious and what it means is an incredible ability to see clearly what really needs to be done, to truly understand what's going on and then act accordingly. It has this kind of insight to it, a ready insight into how things work and what the state of things really are. And in particular, with regard to people. Dionisio, in a very short conversation, would have this capacity to understand what the issue was and to really help that person, from a brand new employee who's coming up to the most senior people he dealt with around the world. So Dio was patient, he was persistent, and yes, he was perspicacious. And we can't help but grieve when we lose someone, we lose that light that we've all known in his smile. But at the same time, I think we can take joy as we reflect on what a pleasure it was to be a colleague and a friend of Dionisio. Thanks.
I'd next like to ask Carmen Valera Santos to come up. What? Oh, she's on the video. Oh. Okay, so we're ready to play? We are now going to master our own technology.
Dear Lord, being Dionisio's colleague and friend has been a heartfelt honor. You probably agree with me that he was an example to follow in many areas at the professional level, but what stays strong in my memory is his passion for life, his empathy and goodness, always alert to the needs of his friends and colleagues to support them without reservation. These qualities made him a unique human being and generated the necessary trust for the expansion of the global network of programs in field epidemiology training. Without his charismatic personality and engagement, we all know this would have been impossible. I met Dionisio 20 years ago in Madrid when I enrolled in the PEAC, the Spanish FETP, and he was my supervisor. At the time, he was a young doctor and field epidemiologist, graduate from the first PEAC cohort, and had recently joined the management team of the program. I'm not exaggerating if I say he was the best mentor that any fellow could wish for, with his openness and caring nature. Despite his young age, his experience and enthusiasm made him soon a popular professor and lecturer in different public health institutes, schools, and universities in Spain. I recall his focus and dedication. He could skip meals or sleep to prepare a class while juggling different responsibilities. Dionisio had the capacity to make field epidemiology seem like an easy task. He made true what they say about mastering a profession, either in arts, sports, or science. Champions make appear the most sophisticated performance as if it does not require any effort. That was Dionisio. Always mindful of his capacity to build bridges among colleagues and programs, he appreciated the richness of multiculturalism and diversity. Wherever he went, he became immediately admired and loved by everyone. For many years now, during the first days of March, many of us would be already expecting his sometimes quite flourish note with words of encouragement and admiration towards his female friends and colleagues. This was his way of showing his endorsement of gender balance, diversity and equality as human rights, and at the same time celebrating International Women's Day. He never forgot, year after year, to send us this beautiful note, which so many times made my day. I would like to end by thanking you, Dionisio, for being a daring friend of Jim and mine, in good and in the tough times, when together with Candy you made us feel like one single family with your love and support. Thanks. Our only comfort, Dionisio, is that your warm soul and amazing smile keep sharing the bright light that will give us strength and inspiration and alleviate the pain of missing you.
Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Mark Rosenberg to come up. Mark, as many of you may know, was my boss for many years, second CEO of the task force, but also the man who embraced Dionisio and brought the TEFINET program to the task force. Mark and Dio had a very special bond, and I'd like to ask Mark to come speak to that.
Candy and everyone else. It's nice to have you here because this really is a celebration. And it's a celebration of a wonderful man. And, you know, for me, Dionisio was not Dr. Herrera, even though he had 24 doctoral degrees and 8 master's degrees. And he wasn't Dionisio, he was my professor to teach me, and always my professor. And I loved my professor. There you have it. I loved him. He was someone who came here, and we weren't sure what we were getting when we hired Dionisio, and we got one very big man. He was really big. And he was all heart. It was all heart inside, and he cared so deeply about people, the people he worked with, his colleagues, and those who he thought he could help around the world, the most vulnerable, the poorest of the poor. He really cared deeply, and most of all, he cared about his family, his amazing and wonderful family. And he had such a big heart, but hearts, as you probably know, don't grow in a vacuum. Hearts grow up in a family. They grow with his most important partner in his lifetime, with his children, and with his parents, and with his colleagues. It was a very, very big heart. When he came here for TEFINET, he didn't have a lot of resources. It will come as a surprise to all of you who know CDC, that CDC is not always freely flowing with the money and the resources. Not always. Thomas, you know, there were struggles along the way. Daniela, you know, there were struggles, but he came with an amazing, amazing set of resources. And that was his ability to form relationships. And you talk about building networks. I remember all those global TEFINET conferences and the regional TEFINET conferences. And most of all, I remember the social nights and the social activities. And people said, Dionisio, you're supposed to be working. CDC is not going to pay you to socialize, to dance with people, to sing, to have these very funny but truly ridiculous talent shows. No, CDC is not going to pay you for that. And Dionisio knew that you don't build a network on internet connections alone. There was no one like him who could work the room, work the floor, talk to everybody, make them feel important, make them feel good, make them feel connected. And those are the connections that were so important to TEFINET. And not just important to TEFINET, they're important to everything we do. And he made that really clear, really, really clear. So hearts don't grow in a vacuum, and they grow in your family. And for Dionisio, I think they really grew with his parents. I had the honor and the pleasure to know his parents, and they were extraordinary people, extraordinary people. And for 8 years, they were in Cuba. Dionisio was here, and they couldn't come here. They couldn't get the visa. They couldn't come. They didn't see him, and they didn't see their grandchildren, and they didn't see Candy. Do any of you have children? Some of you, I bet, do. And can you imagine what it's like not to see your kids when it's your only child, not just your kids, not to see your only child for 8 years? The sacrifice that they made, what they gave him. So it's no surprise that he really grew a very, very big heart. And they showed what it means to love deeply and to love completely with all your heart and soul. So I think more than anything else, Dionisio really brought a clear picture of what it means to put love and compassion into action. He worked with everyone he met. You've heard people say that. My professor led with his heart. And for what he gave us and what he taught us, I am so very, very grateful. As Dave mentioned, we want to commemorate Dionisio, my professor, with a special award. And I'm pleased to say that we now have an endowment for this award that was given to the task force to honor Dionisio, the Consequential Compassion Award. Now, when you talk about consequential compassion, there may be somebody, someplace, who doesn't know what that means. Consequential compassion. Actually, maybe nobody anyplace knows what it means. It's a pretty esoteric term, but I think Dionisio helped us translate that into very, very clear language. And I think what he gave us and what this award will commemorate is that if we want to make a difference, our heart has to be in it. If you really want to make a difference, if you really want to do something meaningful and good and lasting, your heart has to be in it. And for me, that's the task force. What a good match. You know, what a good thing he gave us by making this really clear. And so I would say we can build on what Bill Fagey said. Bill Fagey said if the task force is to maintain its reputation, it will be because in everything we do, behind every decision we make, we see the faces. We see the people that we're talking to, we see the people that we're working with, and we see those faces. And remember, it's people that we're working for and people that we're working with. So Bill Fagey taught us that, but I think that Dionisio, my professor, takes that 2 steps further with this award. And what I would say is that, yes, we see the faces, but we also connect our hearts and we deliver together. We see the faces, we connect our hearts, and we deliver together. And to me, giving us that understanding of what some people call consequential compassion, what a gift he gave us. What a wonderful, wonderful gift from this man with this incredibly big heart. I'll remember that and always be grateful. I think I'll never think about consequential compassion again without thinking about my professor.
Next, we'd like to have several remembrances from TuffyNet staff members, colleagues who work very closely with Dionisio. First, I'd like to ask Tina Rosani.
One afternoon, nearly 3 years ago, I remember sitting in the table in the corner of Dionisio's office and admitting to him that I felt completely overwhelmed. I said to him that thinking of everything that we needed to do to build TuffyNet's communication strategy felt like standing at the base of a mountain and looking up. I was the first person he had ever hired exclusively in a communications role, meaning that the work ahead of us was substantial. In response, Dionisio simply laughed and replied, "Yes, but at least now we found the right mountain." I will never forget these words and the optimism, trust, and long-term vision they conveyed. This is the Dionisio we knew, a leader who led through positivity and motivation. He always seemed to genuinely believe that as a team, we could solve any problem, and that ultimately, as long as we were okay, everything would turn out okay. During our 9th global conference in Thailand, my colleague Adam and I served as the Masters of Ceremonies for International Night, which by now you've all heard about, so I don't need to explain it. But he and I were expressly instructed by Dionisio not to turn down a single participant or interested participant, which meant that 2 hours of scheduled performances gradually edged closer to 4 hours, and the night went on and on, longer and longer, and Amber was glaring at me, you know, from the audience, like, wrap it up, wrap it up. You know, more and more countries were coming up to us, signing up in the middle of the whole performance. So, but Dionisio said, you know, we can't say no, we have to accept everyone who wants to participate. But this was another key point to know about Dionisio. Not only did he love a good party, but he valued cross-cultural experiences and understood cultural pride better than almost anyone I've ever met. To him, I think denying someone the opportunity to share a national song or a dance that night would have really meant denying them a chance to express pride and happiness, and that's something that Dionisio just would have never accepted. For me, as an introvert, emceeing the event was a fun but terrifying experience. But afterwards, Dionisio came up to me, and you know, he was beaming and smiling, and he said to me with just really unusual force, "I'm proud of you." And he gave me a crushing hug. And in that moment, he was so unlike a boss and so like a father who knew through years of observation my points of insecurity, but never once commented on them directly. Instead, he made me stronger by listening, by being supportive, and by actively giving me opportunities to stretch beyond my comfort zone. Indeed, this is how he strengthened the entire TuffyNet team. Thank you, Dionisio, for mentoring, believing in, and inspiring us. Your vision for public health has inspired my vision, and because of you, I've had the honor of working with some of the most amazing people I've ever met. We care about each other because your authenticity created an environment that allowed us to interact as our true selves, and for that, I will be forever grateful. Thank you.
This is a special day. Next, I'd like to ask Amber Healy to come up, played a very big role in supporting the team.
As you can see, I had to honor Dionisio being Trust for International Night. Sorry, short one here. So when I first met Dionisio, it was at my interview. And I had an instant kindred connection with him as we both started to converse in Spanish, much to the shock of Miriam, who was part of the interview as well. And being that I'm from Panama, it was such a welcome sense to hear him talk Spanish to me and tell me about the job. And what struck me that day is that he was larger than life. And I remember hoping that I would be selected for the position just so that I could work with him. Just in those brief few moments that I got to know him. Jump forward 3 weeks into the job, and I had been to a staff retreat 2 days after starting, not knowing what TuffyNet did, let alone anything about field epidemiology. And then Dionisio informed me I was going to Madrid, never having been to Spain, to help with the logistics of a conference for 100 people. And this was still not knowing and having any clue as to what TuffyNet did. Needless to say, upon my return from Spain, I had turned in my resignation, thinking that I was in way over my head, especially since I had some very intense things going on personally at home. But as you can see, I decided to stay, and it was because of one person, Dionisio Herrera. He had a way of being able to see me where I was on the ledge, if I was still close to the window or as far off as the corner of the building, and meet me there to talk me off of it and see a different perspective than what I was looking at, which he then did numerous times for me over the last 2.5 years. While I became the events manager shortly after starting, I remained the duties of being his assistant. And as an assistant, I thought it was imperative for me to be on top of his schedule. I learned really quickly not to hold him to his calendar, as well as not to bother monitoring people dropping in unannounced. Often I would hear him down the hall at the beginning of each day saying hello to each member of the staff, inquiring about their families, schoolwork, etc. He knew exactly what was going on in each member of the staff's life. and made sure that they each knew how he felt about them and what they were doing. I also began to anticipate that I would see 10 new emails from him each morning that he wrote at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that day. He lived his life according to his time and internal schedule. I would also laugh at having catch-up calls with him, only to find out he would be calling me from places like Springfield, Illinois with his family, singing Lincoln's Birthplace. He was a consummate professor. In doing my review, he would gloss over my SMART goals and go right for my professional development and ask me what I had planned for the year. If he knew someone from the staff was in school getting a degree, he would ask them how they were doing. He would ask how he could help and how he could keep challenging them to learn. Managing conferences, I often saw him talk to a nervous student with the same manner and respect that he gave the highest VIP, and would so draw them in that I could see that person visibly relax. But most of all, he was a friend. And even though he was the boss, he made it a safe place for each of us to be ourselves. I know that I could come to him with anything, and of course he knew all about what was happening in my life, and he understood in turn that he could come to me with anything. I loved hearing about his kids and candy from him. We laughed about the antics that Jose Ramon would get into and the sweetness that Celia provided him. I often heard how much he married up when it came to candy. He also made it a safe place for me to argue a point. I usually lost, with rare exception, but he would then give me sound reasons behind his side, and of course I would be in total agreement and forget why I had brought the original argument in the first place. I would have loved to have learned his Jedi mind tricks. He taught me that what he thought was good in wines. His favorite was a red of all types. He taught me how not just to see the cultures I grew up in, but what I could learn from other cultures I was going to come into contact in my journey here with Toughness. He taught me live life to the fullest, no matter the personal hardship you might be going through. He taught me to laugh from tuk-tuk rides in Bangkok by less than questionable tourist trap drivers, to disco lights being put up in the grand ballroom for plenary sessions at conferences, to being soaked to the bone on a boat ride through major falls, to working through an escape room. He saw the best in every adventure, as he put it. Dionisio, you are loved, you are missed. Please know that you have a team that will continue to build on the foundation you so lovingly tended. You have an amazing family that I have seen encompass and portray the best of you. Farewell, Lucy.
He is one very special guy. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Kip Baggett from CDC to give his reflections on his time to be.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the honor and the privilege to be here today, to represent CDC and sharing our feelings about Dionisio and the work and partnership. There are probably at least 20 or more people in this room from CDC who could easily get up and give remarks that would be meaningful, personal, and impactful. When I started thinking about what to say about Dionisio, it's a pretty tall order, but I, similar to Patrick, boiled it down to 3 categories: the hug, the network, and the man. Nothing so audacious as perspicacious. So I start with the hug because that's where it always started with Dionisio. I met Dionisio for the first time at the EIS conference in April 2016. And at the time, I was the field epidemiology training program resident advisor in Zambia. Our introductory handshake immediately became a hug, and that's the way it was with Dionisio. A handshake just wasn't good enough. And I don't mean when you just haven't seen him in a while, and I'm not talking about just like a casual bro hug. This is a full-on embrace. I think they alluded to the same. And this very sincere embrace was emblematic of the personal connection that he had with every FETP around the world. And not just the program, but with the individuals in those programs. He knew the history of every program in the TEFINET family. He understood their needs, both large and small. Which brings me to the network. Dionisio's personal connection to each program, his commitment to each program, and his passion for their success were the glue that is the net in TEFINET. And not Elmer's glue, more like Gorilla Glue, or maybe it's cement. And thanks to his tireless hard work, dedication, and very intentional efforts to build relationships, the network will remain strong and continue to grow. These relationships are the foundation on which Dionisio developed TEFINET into an organization to meet 21st century global health challenges and to become the partner the world needed to take FETP to a new level and to help countries ensure their health security, indeed global health security, through a well-trained public health workforce. He built TEFINET into a strong, strategic, and nimble organization that extended CDC's global reach and has been critical to our collective global health mission, including responding to the most urgent of public health emergencies like Ebola and the emergence of Zika. Dionisio grew TEFINET's membership to at least 71 FETPs, serving over 100 countries, and he greatly expanded the partnership to include academic institutions, other U.S. government agencies, multilateral organizations, and many others. A truly global effort, which we're now beginning to refer to as the FETP enterprise. TEFINET was founded on and remains grounded in field epidemiology, but has been made truly robust through Dionisio's personal touch. So now the man. We all know about Dionisio's incredible work ethic, his honesty, his sincerity, and his innate leadership qualities. He's truly a role model for us all. But for me, perhaps the most enduring impression of Dionisio and the greatest source of his inspiration to me came from an unexpected place, his family. Despite traveling what seemed like 70% of his time, his commitment and connection to his family was always front and center. His family often traveled with him. In fact, I had the pleasure of meeting Candy, Celia, and Jose Ramon in Chiang Mai, Thailand at the Global TEFINET Conference in 2017. And in the face of busy schedules, inevitable last-minute snafus, and competing priorities, family always came first. And this is never more evident than when you meet his children. Celia and Jose Ramon always greet you with a sincere handshake, eye contact, to let you know that they're really listening and that they're not to be trifled with. And a full-throated introduction. Future leaders like their father, I have no doubt. I think we can only hope that they remain on the good side. We can keep them in public health and they don't become CEOs of multinational corporations. In all that he did, and he did a lot, Dionisio conducted himself with grace, with dignity and humility. He has made me a better friend, a better colleague, and I think countless others would say the same. We all know that Dionisio would want us to honor his legacy by continuing his important work with his same passion and dedication. But for a long time to come, we won't be able to talk about TEFINET or FETP without thinking of Dionisio and his signature hug.
I received several remembrances of Dionisio in the mail from, I was going to say old friends, but I'm not going to call Jim Anderson old. I'm going to call him a friend of long standing. And also from John Orr. Jim wrote the following: "It is with great sadness learning about passing of Dio. Having attended the Task Force Consequential Compassion Award for Extraordinary Achievement in Global Health in October, honoring this great man, his record of achievements gave testimony to his outstanding career in the field of public health. In 2003, I was called upon to extricate TEFINET from a difficult situation. Our principal funding source was USAID, and they were threatening to withdraw their $1 million award. The program had hired a new executive director, Mr. John Orr, but he was delayed in taking over TEFINET. The program was in limbo and ready to crumble. We managed to delay their commitment. We managed to delay action by USAID. John Orr arrived and immediately restored the grant and actually got them into double their commitment. A new board of directors was formed and Dionisio was elected as chairman. With the board and executive team in place, TEFINET quickly gained momentum and made a mark in international health. The credit goes to Dionisio for his dedication to the organization and the belief in its mission. In 2006, I took over as executive director of TEFINET. The USAID grant was finished and the outlook was bleak. We were able to secure additional funding from CDC and other contracts amounting to $3.5 million. On the surface, nothing had changed regarding the world view of TEFINET. We were still holding regional and international conferences, and the number of programs were increasing. Yet it was clear that fundraising for a small NGO would be difficult, if not impossible, in the long run. I convinced the board that our future was to merge with another international organization. We contacted several and selected the Task Force for Child Survival, which became quickly the Task Force for Global Health. We worked out a deal to merge, and with our entry, the Task Force for Global Health emerged. The first task was to select a director. We identified a number of qualified applicants, but Dionisio stood out a head and shoulders above all the rest. I'd made a special trip to Madrid and met with Dio to encourage him to apply. His commitment to TEFINET overcame any reservations he may have had. As they say, the rest is history. He built a competent team, expanded the number of country field epi training programs, and increased funding. We could not be prouder of the extraordinary efforts to raise TEFINET to international acclaim. Our hearts and condolences go out to Dio's family. He was a friend and a colleague, Jim Anderson. This is a note from John Orr. I had the pleasure of working with Dio during my tenure as TEFINET's executive director from 2003 to 2006. He had just begun his term as chairman of TEFINET's board of directors when I started. At that time, he was living in Madrid and was a professor at the Institute. Dionisio had many admirable qualities, but what I remember most was his tact and diplomatic skills, which he certainly used to advantage in promoting TEFINET's cause. He seems to have known practically everyone in the field. He was the very model of courtesy and friendliness, in other words, a gentleman. I extend my condolences to his wife Candy and to his children, all of whom I had the pleasure of meeting when they visited Vancouver in 2012. Dionisio will sorely be missed. I think that speaks well for what all of us feel. If there are any others who would like to make a remembrance right now, please, Jose. Dr. Jose Cadero, come on up.
We're here.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I met Dionisio in the 1990s. I was invited to the then emerging Spanish field epidemiology program there. And My friend Johnny Ruyan was actually one of the first collaborators in getting the program developed, and it was a large group of in the presentation, but it was clear who was Dionisio. He was the one asking the great questions, but also after the session, it was just the wine charmer having tapas and good wine. From that time, it took some years to see him again, but he was back at the EIS conference, and when he came with International Light, and it was great to reconnect with him, and especially when he knew that he was coming to work at Definite. Being at EIS Week, we did invited him to come and join us. My wife and I have the Hispanic Eve, and during EIS Week, we bring Spanish speakers, and you only have to know hola to come. and that is the session where we try to bring friendship, support, food, drinks, and especially music. And the highlight of the evening is a sing-along with every pianist, etc. here. And everyone, what we try to do is to sing at least one song from every country represented. And when Dionisio was there, we obviously had to sing Guantanamera. That was his anthem. And his voice was so strong, and his charm was just incredible. When he sang, you could feel the sentiment that he placed in the song. And as some of you may know, the song starts, "I'm a sincere man from where the palm tree grows, and before I die, let these verses out of my soul." Dionisio may have moved to another life, but he left us many, many memories of a sincere man in the sister island where the palms grow. We will never forget.
Thank you.
I've always been a victim of alphabetism because my last name starts with a W, and in this case, geographicalism. You notice that there was a little bit of conflict between Jim Anderson's report at the beginning and you guys. As I recall it, Jim and Jim found the task force and made the original negotiations, and we thought, great, we'll pass the money through and all will be well. Wrong. They had very serious technical contributions to make, which we couldn't see at the time. So we brought Dionisio, and we sat and talked with the task force folks. He had an amazing vision, and we thought, well, it's arranged. Didn't hear back. About 3 weeks later, I got a call from a Japanese restaurant in downtown Decatur, and it's Dionisio. These sneaky, untrusting guys had brought him back to grill him to be sure he was up to their high standards, which happily he was. Then when Jim and I looked at the budget, we saw that Dionisio had what seemed to us a small salary. And he brought his whole family over, did all this great stuff. And Mark said, look, this is the way good managers do it. We start people out low. If they meet expectations or exceed them, we raise their salary so fast, it makes their heads spin. So I'm assuming, Candy, that you and Dionisio were making 10 or 20 million bucks a year and worth every dime of it. We'll miss Dionisio, certainly. Shelley will. He is great dancing. He always, each year, she would dance with Dionisio, and I tried to study his technique. Dionisio is truly a passionate man, dedicated to making the world a better place, to preventing pain and suffering and disability. And he reached out and touched thousands and thousands of people over the years and inspired all of us. And if you looked at that little glint in his eye, you begin to look around a room like this, and you see there's just a little bit of Dionisio's glint in all of your eyes and in eyes all over the world. And when his graduates train new epidemiologists, when they go out and save now millions and millions of lives, there will always be that glint of Dionisio in everybody's eyes, for which I am profoundly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama. Yeah. Before we bring our ceremony to a close, I want to ask Candy to have a fun.
First of all, I would like to thank the task force for organizing Dionisio's memorial. I'm here today to say the words I never thought I would say. Dionisio, my husband and father of our kids, Celia and Jose Ramon, was a great man. I'm not sure I can really express just how much we'll miss him. Not only was a wonderful husband, but a wonderful son, father, son-in-law, uncle, best friends, co-worker, boss, and so more. In the past months, my family and I have heard and read testimonies to Dionisio for friends in many countries. Dionisio's ability to make everyone feel comfortable, secure, and loved were his greatest strengths. Dionisio was my soulmate, my inspiration. He supported and loved all and was always there to help us navigate through life's challenges. I remember the first time I saw him in 1994. He was part of the group of the epidemiologists who studied and outbreak tuberculosis in Spain at the hospital where I work. I could never imagine that 5 years later, we will meet again at the National Center of Epidemiology. We began work together in a Spain field epidemiology training program PEAC. Our family life started in Spain. Celia was our first and lovely child in 2007. Soon after, our second baby, Jose Ramon, was born. And in 2009, we moved to Atlanta with 2 little kids, a big adventure for the whole family. Today, I want to share with you where I discovered who Dionisio truly was. In 2015, Dionisio was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, and at this time, he began to be a fighter. Dionisio didn't give up and lived intensely during the last year. Celia and Jose Ramon were his reason to fight for living. Dionisio tried to teach our children how to enjoy and discover the wonders of this life. and how important the people that we met in our life are. They have the opportunity to accompany Dionisio on his last trips in which they saw their father working and met many people of the different countries, and especially the definite staff, because the definite staff is second family. Dionisio left us too soon, but we have his legacy and many wonderful memories that will guide us in this new stage of our lives. I would like to finish reading in English and in Spanish because Dionisio's parents are watching this video. A poem by Madre Teresa de Calcutta, that expresses Dionisio's philosophy of life. Life is an opportunity. Benefit from it. La vida es una oportunidad. Aprovechala. Life is beauty. Admire it. La vida es una belleza. Admírala. Life is bliss. Taste it. La vida es una bendición. Disfrútala. Life is a dream. Realize it. La vida es un sueño. Hazlo realidad. Life is a challenge. Meet it. La vida es un reto. Afróntalo. Life is a game. Play it. La vida es un juego. Juégalo. Life is a promise. Fulfill it. La vida es una promesa. Cúmplelo. Life is sorrow. Overcome it. La vida es dolor superado. Life is song. Sing it. La vida es un himno. Cántalo. Life is a struggle. Accept it. La vida es un combate. Acéptalo. Life is a tragedy. Confront it. La vida es una tragedia. Enfréntate. Life is an adventure. La vida es una aventura, desafíala. Life is luck, make it. La vida es su suerte, merécela. Life is too precious, don't destroy it. La vida es algo preciado, mírala. Life is life, fight for it. La vida es vida, defiéndela. Thank you so much for all people that stay here with us, with my family, because Sia, Jose Ramon stay at the school, Dionisio's parents, they are watching in this moment, my family too. And thank you so much for all people that they are watching in this moment. I would say really thank you for the all support that you gave us during the last video of Dionisio, my family, and his family. Thank you so much.
Remembering Dionisio, something all of us will carry with us. All of us have memories of this very graceful and caring, sincere, loving fighter. He was a generous father and a generous husband. He was the professor. It is true, Mark always called him professor. We've celebrated a man of the world. He really was a man of the world. As many of you know, when we were preparing for the Dio Award, within 24 hours of asking colleagues around the world, they would send a video congratulations. Within one day, we had over 30 videos. It's just amazing, from every continent. Excepting, I don't think we got anything from Antarctica. We might have missed that. But I think he knew everybody but the penguins. Truly a man of the world, a gift to us, a gift to the TEFINET program, a gift to world health. And he will be missed. I think forever of his big smile, his big heart, and Dionisio, dance, dance, dance. With that, I'd like to close the ceremony, ask all of you to join us, the TEFINET staff, for a very lovely reception, and let's continue to remember a fabulous man. Thank you very much.